Hello and welcome to another episode of Dynasty 365 on Fantasy and Frames. I'm JT along with Aiden. Tonight we are talking risers and fallers for running backs. Stick with us as we go through the list and say who we like and who we don't like, who's kind of moving up our list and down our list. Stick with us here on Fantasy and Frames. Dynasty 365 is now. No Jorge tonight. He will be joining me later where we'll talk linebackers, risers, and fallers on Shoot the Gap. Tonight is just me and Aiden. Aiden, how you doing?
Man, I'm doing great. I'm very excited to keep going through these risers and fallers episodes, kind of take back a step back after the draft. Last week we did quarterbacks, and now we are going to do running backs and work our way through wide receivers and tight ends in the next couple of weeks. This should be fun.
Yeah, well, let's jump right into it. If you didn't get a chance to check out the quarterback show, make sure you go back, rewatch that. You can watch it on YouTube, or you can go to our podcasting where you watch or listen to podcasts or watch them on Spotify. You can watch podcasts on Spotify occasionally now as well. So go ahead and check that out. Any of those platforms you use, jump on there, re-listen to that. We had a good talk last week about some of our favorites. We were in lockstep on a bunch of guys that we really liked or were down on. We'll see if we're on the same page again this week. Aiden, why don't you start us off with your top running back riser post-draft?
So this is in no particular order, but I'm going to throw this one out there. This is an ugly one in my opinion. I've never really been fond of this guy, as you may or may not know, but taking bias out of it, we got to look at the facts. And I'm going to throw out DeAndre Swift of the Chicago Bears. Obviously, all 5 starters on the offensive line are upgraded here. He has a much better offensive ecosystem. Everyone says, well, but Ben Johnson doesn't like Swift. They're going to draft a running back early, maybe trade up for Gianti. That didn't happen. Maybe take Hampton at 10 overall. That didn't happen. JT, they didn't take a running back till the 7th round in Kyle Monangai. I like it. Kyle Monangai is like a deep sleeper, maybe off the waiver wire in Dynasty rookie draft in the 5th round or so. But like, he's not gonna. He's maybe the Roshan Johnson role, if that makes sense, not the DeAndre Swift role, if anything. So maybe Ben Johnson is changing his tune. So I gotta look at the facts here. I know it's an ugly one. I know it's a gross one, but like in terms of volume play, way upgraded offensive ecosystem and everything like that. So I gotta go with DeAndre Swift. I'm not a fan, but taking bias out of that, I gotta throw out Swift.
Yeah, I can get on DeAndre Swift here. I mean, here's the thing: was it Ben Johnson that didn't like DeAndre Swift, or was it someone else on the coaching staff? I've been there where I really like certain players, and I got vetoed by other coaches saying, "No, let's play this other guy," or a GM that didn't want to pay someone and trade him. So, I mean, I know that we saw in the past that, he got moved from the Lions, but was that a Ben Johnson decision? We don't necessarily know about that. Obviously, them not drafting running back earlier. Now, there's reports out there they wanted to try to move up and get GT or go with another back and just couldn't get it done. But for them to just go, okay, all the way, we're going to wait till the 7th round to take somebody. To me, if you're a DeAndre Swift owner, you have to be happy about that. You got to think there is, Roshan. I know a lot of people like Roshan Johnson, but he didn't show a lot last year to make you have any confidence that he's going to be the guy in Chicago. So if you're a Swift guy, if you don't like Swift, Aiden, I would say hold him, wait and see if he hits early in the season, and then see if you can move him if he has a couple early games. Because here's the thing: this should be a good Chicago offense. It really should be. It should be improved. Swift should have some good games, as he had some good games last year. Is he going to be, an RB1 for fantasy? Probably not. But is he going to be a legit RB2, RB3 play? I think so. On this good offense, I think he has to be, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think JT, I think you'll agree with me. He's not the flashiest guy in the world and not the most explosive guy in the world, but he's a really good pass catcher. And this all comes, we love volume in fantasy. And based on what the Bears did or really didn't do more in the draft, this really comes down to a volume play. I think you would agree.
I agree. I think he does catch the ball in the backfield, so I do think he could get some third down work. there was some nice plays last year. I just think they have to set him up and use him properly. I think the fact that Ben Johnson knows who he is familiar with him, actually helps him a little bit. And the fact that they didn't draft anyone until late, because at least he knows how to use him, right? He should be able to go in and go, hey, this is his strengths. These are his weaknesses. This is the stuff we know he can't do. So let's not put him in a situation to do stuff he's not good at. You would think so. You'd hope so. I mean, that is, that's just quality coaching 101 is that. So I would think that this is a nice little spot for him. I like it. I moved him in a couple leagues last year, anticipating maybe a earlier running back, maybe a Ginty here. So I moved him in a couple leagues. A little upset I did in the fact that I probably could have got a little more use out of him. And again, Swift is another guy. While he hasn't been phenomenal by any means in the pros, he still was only 25. We forget about that sometimes. Last year,
thought he was older, but
I know, it's nuts, right? So last year was the first year in his career that he started every game of a season and played the entire season. So we also got to give that a little bit. He's had injury concerns in the past. He hasn't been a full-time guy. His really that 1 year in Philly, he went for over 1,000 yards and 5 touchdowns. Also added 39 catches for 200 yards on a touchdown.
Yep.
Last year for the Bears, these numbers aren't going to blow you away. He was just under 1,000 yards, though, 959 on 253 carries, 6 touchdowns. Also added 42 catches for 386 yards. So, again, you're not going to get great numbers out of him, but I think he could easily match those numbers this year, especially if he stays healthy and plays every game. I think 1,000 yards rushing with 4 or 5 touchdowns, and then add into it maybe 40 catches for another 300 or 400 yards. So I think those are solid numbers for Swift, and a guy that we thought was going to be basically toast post-draft. I don't think he is now.
Yeah, well, JT, one last thing I want to throw in about Swift here. I've been thinking about this back in my mind. If Ben Johnson, they want to draft a running back high next year and want to try to look to trade and shop DeAndre Swift next offseason, maybe they want to try to showcase him as much as possible and give him a ton of carries and a ton of opportunities and say to the rest of the league, this is what you can get from us, which goes back to the volume component for fantasy. I know that's kind of convoluted, but I just have that in the back of my mind.
I agree. And I just think this is not going to be your old Bears offense that's just ground and pound. I think this team is really going to throw the ball a lot. They've got a decent amount of games in domes. They play a decent amount of their home games early in the year before the weather gets cold. I think there's a chance that this team really wants to chuck the ball around. And so I think Swift could be a nice component. I really don't think this team has any ideas of like leaning on DeAndre Swift in this offense. I think they just think he's another piece of the pie. So to me, I think you can get nice quality value out of him right now. If you have somebody in your league that's desperate for an RB2, this might be a nice spot to sell him if you can. Or like I said, you give those first couple games of the year. If he has a decent game, it might be a nice chance to move him along.
Sell high window right now. And then especially coming off those first few weeks, that's a really sell high window.
Absolutely. Before we let's go back and forth between risers and fallers. Let's mix it up a little bit. Why don't you give me a faller?
So again, just I have a list in no particular order. I'm going to go with Najee Harris of the Los Angeles Chargers. When Najee Harris first signed with Jim Harbaugh and the Chargers, I was like, okay, this is awesome. Greg Roman loves to run the football. Jim Harbaugh loves to give the guy to a volume guy. You see what he did last year with J.K. Dobbins. You've seen what he done in Michigan. This is awesome. I said they're probably out of the first round running back conversation. Second round beyond, fine. And then they kind of tamper that a little, if you will, with drafting Omarion Hampton. I thought if Najee Harris impressed enough with Jim Harbaugh and company and staff, he could come back beyond the 1 year deal. But now that Omarion Hampton is there, he's not going to come back just from a dynasty's perspective. I've personally always been a defender of Najee. Is he the most explosive and efficient backing guy in the world? No, but damn it, he's consistent. He'll get you what you need. He's had 1,000 yards in each of his 4 years, respectively, under Mike Tomlin and the Steelers. So, dynasty, though, I was really hoping that they wouldn't draft running back in the first round. Hampton's talented, and that's why I think Najee Harris has no chance of coming back. I thought if he impressed enough, he could, build on the 1 year deal. But obviously with Hampton, that's not going to happen anymore.
Yeah, I thought Najee was my RB2 in a ton of leagues. I mean,
Mine
a
too.
ton of leagues because I liked him at the Steelers. You know, you knew you were going to get the volume. But man, I tell you what, for Najee, here's the thing is for how much everybody's hated DeAndre Swift and the hate on
Overrated.
Najee, I mean, they had pretty similar stats last year. Najee, 1,000 yards rushing, 6 touchdowns, 36 catches, 283. So, I mean, again, two guys, pretty similar stats. Najee's 26, you know, so again, he's not quite as old as everybody makes him out to be. I thought this was going to be a prime landing spot when he signed with the Chargers.
I was so
I did
excited.
a little dance. I was like, yes. I was like, this is a great spot. I hated to see the Steelers lose him as a Steelers fan, but I was like, hey, this is a great spot for him to land in. I'm all about getting a little Najee in LA with the Chargers. You know, Marion Hampton crushes it. You're right. It moves him
It's sad
down.
to say, but yeah.
I think he's still going to be a part of that offense, but I think he's going to be a better real life player than he is going to be a fantasy player
I
this
agree.
year because I just don't think you're going to see the volume touches he needs. I mean, he's had over 250 carries every year of his career. And while, you know, he never matched the 74 catches he had his rookie season with Ben Roethlisberger dropping the ball off to him, he still had 41 catches, 29 and 36. So it wasn't nothing. He's actually a decent receiving back out of the backfield. The guy has never missed a game. You know, career 68 games, 68 starts. I think that is highly underrated. Here's the thing: if Hampton doesn't come along in like pre-camp, everything doing a rookie camp, say he's slow to pick up the offense, Najee could be a real nice start to the season. Now, I think this is going to
And you
eventually
sell.
be Hampton all the way, but I don't think you can totally discount Najee this year. But like you said, I was hoping he would prove it on this 1 year prove it deal and get like a longer 2 or 3 year deal next year.
Not happening.
There's almost no chance of that now. Najee's going to have to be hoping to play for somebody else. Really, for Najee to be super fantasy relevant, I think an injury or Hampton just not picking up the system and them saying, hey, we got to play Najee first. Hampton's the backup, and we'll go forward with Hampton as a sophomore, you know, his second year in the league because that's just a tough spot for Najee to be in. I think he's going to be in the mix. He will get touches, but we're not going to see him with 250. I mean, there's no way. I think you're looking at maybe – I'm thinking you're like looking at maybe 150 total touches this year, rushing, receiving, if he's playing the backup role to Hampton. This team is getting better and better. Herbert, you saw when he was healthy last year, they were starting to sling the ball down the field a lot more than they were early in the season. So I like this Chargers offense, and I think Najee could have a place. Now, the real question is going to be, what kind of receiving back is Hampton? We've seen Najee, even though he's a bigger back, he's not your typical third down scat back, but he can block and he can catch. Now, does Najee kind of work out a third down role for this team? That would be really strange, as that hasn't really been anything he's done in his career, but it'd be interesting to see. I think this one's going to be tough. If you're selling Najee, I just don't think you can get anything for him right now
Not worth
of
it.
even reasonable value. To me, it's worth holding on and seeing if anything happens. If you have somebody who's completely out on Najee, maybe go try to buy him for cheap, maybe offer up a third rounder for him and see if you can get him. Because again, we love these rookies that get drafted in the first round. We want to see them come out and be awesome right away. It doesn't always happen, especially with some of these old school coaches. If you don't know the system and you can't get the blocking and pick up the blocking schemes and everything else, then they're not going to play you off the bat. I think you could end up seeing, and this is kind of weird, but I think you could end up seeing Najee being the guy the first maybe 5 or 6 weeks of the year. And then you see Hampton taking over late in the year, kind of a little bit like the Colts did with JT his rookie year, where you were really surprised that he wasn't the guy right off the bat. And it took about 6-8 games before they finally really turned it over to him. And then he crushed down the stretch. But that first part of the year, he was not their lead running back. There's a chance that Najee starts at the beginning of the year. But if he does, again, find that sell window. If he plays well and plays early, find that sell window and move them while, you know, to someone who has an injury and is like desperate to kind of get everybody moving.
Yeah, after the first 6 weeks or so, when rookies come out, oh, this guy sucks. He's not doing anything for fantasy. I want to drop him. Remember what everyone was doing the first month of the season, Jahmyr Gibbs' rookie year? That will be the reaction again. So after the first 6 weeks or so, you can sell Najee before this backfield really turns to Mayer and Hampton, and he just runs away with the job. And Najee's value is totally plummeted.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump in with a guy here. I'm gonna go reverse here. I'm gonna go another faller before we do a riser.
Okay.
A faller for me on here, and I just don't know what to do with him. It's pretty frustrating at this point. Anybody who has him doesn't know what to do, I think, and that's Travis Etienne from the Jags.
Yeah,
we saw they went out and they got Rayshon Tootin. They got him. They didn't get him till the 4th. Obviously, Etienne was a former first-round pick, same year as Najee. But we've got a new coaching staff. We know that they have no problem playing later backs. This is the same coach who played Bucky Irving, and was all over Bucky Irving. I know I'm probably one of the last people still on board here, but I like LaQuint Allen a ton. They took him in the 7th round. I think he's a great receiving back. I think he's a perfect match with Tootin. Tootin's the kind of home run hitter. I think Allen's going to be the guy that blocks and catches the ball on third down.
Yeah.
Yep. I think those guys. Now, will either of those guys hit early this year? I don't know if that's going to happen. I really don't. But I feel like the Jags are setting up to move on from both Travis Etienne and Tank Bigsby. It's taking both those guys just makes me feel like they're ready to move. They're going to slowly move on. I think Etienne is a guy that's going to probably get the start at the beginning of the year, but he's another guy. If you see any positive out of him, you got to move him as soon as you could.
All these veterans, yeah.
Another guy, he's about 26 years old, right in that range with all the other guys we kind of talked about. He's possibly got 2 or 3 years left. Maybe we see an injury in camp. Maybe we see him get moved. You never know with the Jags.
Hopefully,
maybe they move off him. I mean, obviously, he's a guy, I would assume they don't want to go long-term with him. But you could see where another team would see what he's done in the past. I mean, we're 2 years removed from him being one of the top running backs in fantasy. So I don't know if he's necessarily dead, but he might be one of those guys that just needs a fresh start, needs a new team, and then maybe he could bust out. And I would definitely be keeping an eye on him as a guy that possibly is going to get moved if we see quite a few injuries here at the beginning of the year. I think the Jazz could possibly look to send him off.
I love JT. I love this call. I didn't put him down officially, but I had it in the back of my mind. Obviously, in my opinion, the best outcome for Etienne is here. A, they trade him in training camp to running back needy team will give him lots of volume. Etienne, that is. Or B, he just walks after the season as he is a free agent. But if he stays in the Jaguars, which is looking more likely than not right now, this backfield is going to be a mess. I'm anticipating Etienne, Bigsby, and Tootin all getting opportunities and work in this offense to the point where it's going to be ugly and annoying, and none of them are going to be none of them are going to be, dynasty or what have you viable at all, if that makes sense. My only hope for Etienne is I really, really hope he gets traded to the Cowboys or something who need a volume back. But yeah, I don't know if I want this Jags backfield at all, as a whole, because I think they're all going to get work and it's just going to be ugly and annoying.
I agree. I think it's going to be a very frustrating season for Jaguar running back owners. I think everybody's going to, because it absolutely feels like a little bit of Tampa. And I know it's hard. It's we're making that comparison because Liam Cohen, the new coach for the Jags, was the offensive coordinator for Tampa. But we saw it in Tampa. We saw games where Rachaad White had a monster game. Then Bucky was obviously the most consistent, but it wasn't all year. It took him a while before he did it. We even saw Sean Tucker. When he got in there, he had some monster games. I think there's a chance we see a little bit of that with the Jags this year, and that's got me worried. Again, I've been moving those guys if I can move them, and then, Tootin is a guy that he's being drafted a little higher than I would like to take him just because I'm nervous about what's happening there. And the one guy I do have in this backfield, I have a ton of Quinn Allen. And that's because I like him a ton, but I've been getting him as like the last pick in a draft, or I've been taking him as a first pickup in a free agent, waiver wire move. As a guy that I'm going to throw on my taxi and just hold and hope that, in 2 years, he finds a role on this team. And if he doesn't, I cut him and I just move on to another late round running back in the next couple years. So
always there.
I'm going to jump in on one of my risers for me.
Yeah, go ahead.
Compared to the Dynasty, and we'll come back to you. A riser for me, and the reason he's rising in my mind, I don't know how high he's rising, but he's a guy I feel like is just not getting the love and getting ignored in a lot of spaces. I think it's Kenneth Walker. Kenny Walker from the Seahawks. I just think he's banged up last year. He's a guy that's been really good when he's got a chance. He's a playmaker. It just seems like everyone's just kind of forgotten he's there. I see all these guys ranked above him in the rankings. All these rookies, newbies are added in. The guy's only been in 3 years. He's going into year 4. He wants a new contract. We forget about him because this is the society we live in. What have you done for me lately? And the fact that Kenny Walker last year only played in 11 games, the Seahawks struggled a bit. He had 573 yards, still ended up with 7 touchdowns, still had the best receiving year of his career, 46 catches, 300 yards and a touchdown, even though he only played in 11 games. He's never played in a full 17 games, so that's obviously a little bit of a concern as he's missed a couple games every year with injury. Now, 1,000 yards as a rookie in 15 games, 11 starts, 9 touchdowns, though. 27 catches, that year for just over 100 yards. The next year, almost the same touches in the same amount of games, a little under 1,000 yards, 905, but still 8 touchdowns. Also added another 29 catches, 250 yards and a touchdown. And again, last year, if you would have taken his per pace, what he was doing in the season and averaging out, I think he could have ended up having a really good year. Only 500 yards, like I said, in 11 games, but still another 7 touchdowns. If this guy gets a full workload, I don't think there's any reason he shouldn't be able to get double-digit touchdowns. And I was really encouraged with the 46 catches for 300 yards last year. That was kind of the knot coming out of college, is that he couldn't catch. But he went to a system at Wake Forest and at Michigan State both that did not throw the ball to their running backs. I mean, absolutely did not throw the ball to their running backs. It wasn't even in the offense. So him kind of showing in that 11 games that he could get that many catches last year, really excited. To me, he's a buy right now because of the injury last year. The fact that the stats have some good numbers in there, but they're not blowing you away. Somebody goes in and they look at their, you go to trade him, they go look at the history of their league and they look up what his stats, where he finished for running backs in your league. It's not going to be high. So then somebody's going to go, oh man, maybe am I like slightly overthinking him? Do I think he's worth more than he really is? I think you can kind of convince people that maybe he's not worth as much as they think he is.
I did it.
And you could get him cheaper. He feels like a guy that I'm seeing in a lot of trades right now. When you're doing like 2 and 3 player trades combined, I'm seeing a lot of Kenny Walker in there. I like him a lot. I think we've seen when he's healthy what he can do. Super impressive. I like it. We haven't seen it every year. Obviously it's a big if with health, but I think with Sam Darnold at the helm, I really think they're going to lean a little heavier into the run this year. I think they're going to lean on Kenny Walker a little more than people realize in the past, and I'm all about him. If I can get him from a reasonable price, he's a guy I'm sending out offers for right now.
Well, how about I love this call, and how about this? I told you and Jorge and everyone at FAF back in March, I got Kenneth Walker for all I had to give up was Jalen Warren, Marshawn Lloyd, and a 3rd-round pick. That was it. Like, that sounds ridiculous because now Jalen Warren's the clear RB2 and he's not a volume back. Marshawn Lloyd, who even knows if he makes the team, and then 3rd-round pick is just a throw-in. So I love this call with Kenneth Walker. Everyone says, oh, Zach Charbonnet this, Zach Charbonnet that. I feel like everyone tries to make Zach Charbonnet a thing when he's really not as the backup RB there in Seattle, if that makes sense. Like, the fact of the matter is, guys, in the general public, when both Walker and Charbonnet are healthy, Walker gets a majority of the work and touches, and Charbonnet barely gets any. Charbonnet is being forced into a role by the public that he just, in my opinion, shouldn't be. So Charbonnet's fine, but Walker is going to get a ton of the touches, and he always will in the Seattle offense. Everyone says, oh, he's going to walk in free agency and change scenery. The way Mike McDonald and his staff talk about this guy, they love Kenneth Walker. They want to feed him the ball. They want to feature him in the passing game. And with the exodus of Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, they're going to feed him the ball way more out of the backfield, in my opinion. So I love this call.
Yeah, and I feel the same way about Zach Charbonnet as you do. I don't see it. I don't understand why people
are
love
forcing
him.
it. They're trying to.
I don't have him on any roster. I just don't love it. And the people that do love him, I love it because I'm like, great. Somebody give me Kenny Walker, and then you can have Charbonnet. And I mean, I'm one of these guys, and I might end up eating this later on. Somebody can make a clip of this and make fun of me, but I think Damian Martinez is way better than Zach Charbonnet. And they took him in the 7th round. I think he's way better than Zach Charbonnet. So, I mean, I'm one of those people grabbing, Damian Martinez late in drafts because I'm thinking I think he can take over for Charbonnet. And again, if Kenny Walker gets hurt again, I think Martinez would be the go-to guy eventually. Now, I don't think it starts that way, but I think this coaching staff is going to love Martinez, man. I really do. So, here's the other thing about Kenny Walker. And it's not even necessarily Kenny Walker. It's the fact that people are down on Seattle right now. That's a buy time. I think almost everybody is. But if I'm down on a team, and I'm not high on the Seahawks. I think they're going to struggle this year. But I think they lean heavier into Kenny Walker because of that. I think they're going to get into games and be like, man, we got to try to run clock. We got to try to hold on the ball. We can't keep giving the other team the ball back all the time. I just think you're going to see a lot of work out of Kenny Walker. And I tell you what, if you can get. He's never played 17 games, but if you can get 15 out of him, which is what he's done 2 out of his 3 years, he's played 15 games. If you can get 15 games anywhere from 1,000 to 1,200 yards, I think he can clips double-digit touchdowns and say he gets 45 to 50 catches. I mean, we saw last year in that offense, again, all was a little different. He had 46 catches in 11 games. If he can get 50 next year, over 1,000 yards, 10 touchdowns, I'm buying that.
Yeah, everyone says, oh, Seattle's going to struggle, which I agree with. But then the next sentence out of their mouth is, but Kenneth Walker's not going to get a lot of value. That doesn't add up. In a bad offense, they're going to feature the running back quite a bit.
And we've seen that Sam Darnold is way better in his career when they're running the ball well. Yep. When they run the ball well, like most quarterbacks, where Sam Darnold struggled last year was when the Vikings struggled to run the ball late in the year, and they were just in shootouts where he was throwing the ball all over the place.
Can't do that. Yeah.
That's when he struggled. That's when he turned the ball over. That's when problems happened. When they ran the ball well at the beginning of the year in Minnesota, that's when he was ultra efficient, and that's what you need out of Sam Darnold. You need Sam Darnold to be efficient.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right, jump in. Go ahead. Give me a faller.
Yeah.
And then we'll go back to a riser. Give me a faller here for you.
I like this guy because he showed a lot of flashes last year, but I'm going to go with Tyrone Tracy, the New York Giants. Again, I like Tyrone Tracy. He's a good receiving back. But the problem is he's relatively new to the position, coming out of Purdue, converted wide receiver, running back. We'll see how that continues to go. He's undersized at the position, and he had 5 total fumbles last year, which is a lot for a NFL starting running back, or quote-unquote starting running back. Brian Dable yanked the cord on him and put in Devin Singletary. But now they actually have a guy who can handle legitimately a ton of volume, Cam Scatterbo. I think Cam Scatterbo can line up all over the field. I think the pure rushing volume will go to Scatterbo. And I think the goal line touches will also go to Scatterbo because he's much more powerful than Tyrone Tracy. I just don't see a role, unfortunately, for Tracy in this offense for next year or even going forward. Tyrone Tracy this summer could be traded. Let's not rule that out. He went in the 6th round. Scatterbo went 4th round, really borderline 3rd round. I just don't see a role for Tracy here. I don't know what your thought is, but I like Tracy, but I don't think he's a volume guy, and I think he's dead on arrival. This might be bold, but I think Scatterbo comes out of the gate week 1 as the starter and never looks back, and Tracy's just, dead pretty much.
I completely agree with you. Tracy was on my list here for fallers, man. Everything you just said is everything I'm buying. I think Cam Scatabo is a much better player than Tyrone Tracy. I
Yeah,
think Tyrone Tracy was a perfect example of last year, a team that was not good. They had injuries. He kind of
you
fell
have to
into
have
a
somebody.
position. They gave him a shot to play and do everything. I'm telling you what, man. I thought Tracy was a nice story last year. I don't think
Yes.
there's any way that I think we end up looking back and going, man, remember that rookie year?
Remember that Tracy guy?
Yeah, remember that Tyrone Tracy rookie year? I don't think he ever beats those numbers ever
Not
again
even close.
in the
Yeah,
NFL. I don't think it's close. I think Cam Scatabo is such a better player. He was a guy I knew a ton of people that really loved him, wanted to see him on their team, were
me too.
disappointed when they didn't get him. I don't know if there was a better landing spot for him than with the New York Giants.
They
I
run the
mean,
ball a ton
Scatabo,
too. So.
this is a perfect example for them. A team now with Russell Wilson, even if Russell doesn't start, they're going to, Jackson Dart would be there. This is a team that wants to run the ball. They want to win with defense. They want to control the clock. Scatabo was a guy that, we just saw him at grinder in college. Grinder, just getting the carries, could do everything. He had 293 touches last year just at the running back position. 293, 100 more than Tyrone Tracy had in 5 less games.
And Tracy fumbled 5 times.
And Tracy fumbled 5 times. So Scatabo is not a guy known for fumbling. Also, on top of that, we talk about Tyrone Tracy. Really, his best, trait you would say is he used to play wide receiver, so he's got good hands out of the backfield.
Drops.
30 he would drop the ball a little bit last year. 38 catches, 284. Scatabo in Arizona State, 45 for 605. Again, and 4 or 5.
I knew it was high, but not that high.
He had more, yeah. So Scatabo actually had more receptions, more yards.
A lot more.
A lot than in that. So again, these are college numbers, so they do get just a bit inflated. So I do understand you can't just go a 1-for-1 comparison there. Mm-hmm. But I think Scatabo comes in here, and I think he takes this job right from the beginning. I think Tyrone Tracy goes back to being a backup, just a guy that they maybe give a series here or there because they're just pounding the ball with Scatabo over and over. And like the third series, they're like, okay, let's let him sit this series for a second. They play Tyrone Tracy one series, kind of like the Steelers used to do a lot with Najee and Jalen Warren, and then they put Scatabo right back in. If I have Tyrone Tracy, which I don't have a lot of them,
me either.
He's a guy I want to move. I don't think you can get much for him. But dude, if I could trade him, if I can trade him for a 3rd-round pick right now, I'm trading him for a 3rd-round pick. I'm taking the money and running. I just don't think he sees much more volume outside of what he did this year. I don't know. I'm with you on that. I just don't see how it works out. I think Scatabo is the guy. And if you see where everybody else he's going in Dynasty rookie drafts, everybody else thinks he's the guy too. Because he is the running back. He's the top running back coming off in the 2nd round. He's going anywhere from 2-1 to about 2-6 in every league. And he's literally, him and Tootin are about the only 2 running backs coming off the board in the 2nd round of rookie dynasty drafts.
Yeah, Tootin's going right behind him, and Tootin's kind of overvalued to me, so I take Scatabo by a large margin. But let's not forget that Devin Singletary is here too. He's not some flashy name, but like he started the year as the starter last year. Then Tracy came in. Then Tracy fumbled, and Dable put in Singletary. Dable has a great relationship with Singletary, and Singletary just always finds a way to be a pain and just hang around for fantasy purposes. So Tracy could be like the RB3 here, and then there's definitely no role in that scenario.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised that Devin Singletary fell last year. I thought he would be a workhorse for the Giants. I mean, Dayball really loved him. He was a fan of him when he was with the Bills. Devin Singletary is a guy I've always loved for fantasy just because he's always been dirt cheap and he'll give you something. So he's definitely a guy. If I'm drafting, this is a good move. I like this point by you. If I'm drafting Cam Scatabo, I'm looking to see if I can get Devin Singletary for someone for nothing.
Yeah.
Just cheap. If you can get a trade, because I think you're right. I think there's a chance that Singletary, not Tyrone Tracy, ends up being the backup. Scatabo and Tracy could end up seeing just light work as a 3rd guy. It's going to be real interesting there.
Everyone thinks Tracy's the handcuff, when in reality, it might be Devin Singletary is the handcuff. So
I agree with you. Give me a riser.
Yeah, this is the last riser I had down. So sorry about more names, but I'm gonna go same thesis as DeAndre Swift, pretty much. Brian Robinson Jr. It was picking up steam over in the last few days, really leading up to the NFL 2025 NFL draft. That the Commanders, if Marion Hampton's there, obviously wasn't there, but they're gonna take him. Trayvon Henderson, Quinshon Judkins, some volume guy. But they did. They took Brian Robinson Jr. I know they have Austin Eckler, but he's really a third down pass catching back at most, at best at this point. And Jacoby Cross-Airs at 7th-round pick. I really like the athletic upside there, but like just like the Bears trusted Swift and didn't take Monengai until the 7th round, Commanders trusted Robinson and didn't take Cross-Airs, till the 7th round. So JT, I really like how Brian Robinson is set up. Yes, they pass a lot in Washington. Yes, a lot of the red zone rushing opportunities and volume goes to Jaden Daniels, but Brian Robinson is still a really good between the tackles runner. And they don't throw the ball to him much because Jaden Daniels isn't really a check down quarterback. But I think Brian Robinson Jr. is set up for a lot of volume. And Cliff Kingsbury, Commanders will see, and the staff there clearly agree as they waited until the 7th round, just like the Bears did. So a couple risers, Swift and Robinson, not the sexiest names, if we will, but a good stable floor. Their teams clearly told us that, hey, we trust these guys. And they didn't take one till literally the 7th round.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. Brian Robinson's never a guy I've been big on. I've not owned a ton of them in leagues, but you're right. He won in this draft with them not even going a guy till late. It seems like they're ready to roll with him again this year. So, and he did get decent amount of carries. Obviously, a much improved offense. Again, not a sexy name by any means, but those are the guys to buy in fantasy because you can buy him as an RB2, RB3, the guy that's going to get you solid numbers because they aren't the sexy name that people are like, oh, I need more for him. I need more for him. They don't. You can get that guy for a little bit cheaper than he's probably worth. So I'm with you on that one. Not a huge upside for him, as far as like his finish, but really nice floor, and a guy you can get for a super reasonable price. So I like that call as well. I was looking through here, trying to figure out a couple other guys, one more riser and one more faller for me. I'll tell you what, a guy that I should be higher on, but I'm a little worried about. I'm a little worried about him, and that's James Cook for the Bills. Really great season last year. I know Bills are your team. I'm slightly worried that he had too good of a year last year.
Those touchdowns aren't repeating.
And now he thinks he's the man.
Don't get me.
And so my worry is everybody knows I love Ray Davis. Ray Davis was one of my favorite guys coming out last year.
Yep.
So Ray Davis is a guy I love. I could see Ray Davis eating into that a little bit more here in year two. I like Cook. And again, I'm not telling you like, oh, I think he's going to be trash. Get rid of him. I'm not telling you that at all. I just think right now when I'm looking at some trades, I had a buddy texting me today and he said, hey, here's a trade that somebody sent me, and what do you think? The guy was offering, and this tells you how much they like him. He was offering James Cook, A-Chain, and JSN, and in return, he wanted Gene T and two other players. He wanted Gene T and Cole Kmet and one other player, like a 3rd-round pick. Gene T is worth a ton right now. And I'm like, for someone to think that James Cook and A-Chain is basically the same value as Gene T, to me, tells you how high people think their value is. I know that Gene T being the 101, anytime the clear 101 is out there, everybody's way overvaluing him. But for them to be like, hey, yeah, absolutely, James Cook, A-Chain, and I need something else to get Gene T, I was like, wow, man. I was like, that is a ton for me. And again, not that those guys are bad, not that A-Chain's bad, not that Cook's bad. Those guys are solid. But again, the touchdowns. So and you as the Bills fan, you tell me what you think here. James Cook last year, 207 carries, 1,009 yards,
I know where you're going.
16 TDs, 32 catches, 258 yards. Is he worth that much more than Najee Harris? Is he worth that much more than Kenny Walker? when
I
he
think
basically had the same stats or worse than both of them outside the fact that he had 16 touchdowns.
I think he's worth more than Najee Harris, but him and Kenneth Walker, like they're the same, and I think Kenny Walker's even a little above. He had 16 touchdowns. We talk about sticky stats for fantasy. That's not going to happen again. Like 16 touchdowns, like it just bulldozing in the end zone 16 times. That's not going to happen. To your point, your guy Ray Davis, I do anticipate he gets more goal line carries. He gets more volume in the red zone. And we know the tush push thing with Josh Allen. Like 16 touchdowns just isn't happening again. He's still a very good receiving back. So I'd take him over Najee, but I'd take Kenny Walker slightly over Cook, if that makes sense. But they're in the same ballpark.
Yeah, and here's the reason I'm saying this. I've got different rankings up right now. I mean, if you look at DLF's overall rankings right now, James Cook is running back 11
In Dynasty, yeah.
in Dynasty. You got Kenneth Walker at
That's
15.
too high, probably.
Yeah, I mean that's what I'm saying. They got him 11. You got Kenny Walker at 15. I think James Cook is worth more than Najee Harris at this point. But Najee Harris, basically the same stats. Obviously, he's not going to get the touches again. But Najee's dropped all the way down to number 35 on DLF's list. You got him at 35, and you got James Cook at 11. So that's where I'm like, I'm a sell on James Cook right now.
2 tiers difference.
Yeah, I'm a sell on James Cook for that price. I mean, he's RB1 price for a guy that just barely cleared 1,000 yards. Now he had 1,100 the year before, but guess what? Only 2 touchdowns the year before. With 30 more carries, he had about 100 more yards, but had 14 less touchdowns. He actually had 12 more catches for another 150, almost 200 yards more the year before. So I think the receiving volume could be there. But again, you went from 2 touchdowns to 16 in one season, and you actually went down in yardage and down in receptions and receiving yards. So to me, I think James Cook is a nice player. I think he's a good player, and I think his value is inflated because he's on a good offense, Bills offense, and people just don't know who's going to be the receiver. So they just assume that James Cook's going to get more of the action. But you're putting him on a team with Josh Allen, who we know runs and steals a ton of touchdowns. To me, he's just too high. I like James Cook, but man, I can't be buying James Cook as a top 10 fantasy running back. It's tough for me.
JT, these guys are literally back-to-back pretty much on rankings right now. So who you taking from a dynasty perspective? James Cook or Breece Hall? That's insanely difficult because they're basically like the same.
I would take Breece Hall. That's just because I've always really believed in Breece Hall. I just think the injuries have piled up. Some different things happen. I just think Breece Hall overall is a better player. I think the situation right now being on the Bills is better. I think you switch James Cook and Breece Hall. You put Breece Hall on the Bills and James Cook on the Jets. I don't even think people are even thinking twice about it. I think it's 90% of people are taking Breece Hall. I just think people are worried about Fields and they're worried about what's happening with the Jets and the injuries and kind of everything that's piled up. But personally, I just think as a football player and a running back, I just think Breece Hall is a better player than James Cook, though I like the situation in Buffalo with their offense better for James Cook.
I'd take James Cook slightly just because it's a better offensive environment. Obviously, Breece Hall's torn his ACL in his career. James Cook hasn't. That matters. And I think James Cook is a very good receiving back, and the Jets don't really utilize their running backs in the backfield. So I take James Cook slightly, but it is a very tight and intriguing debate.
Yeah, I do think that's a very good question to bring up. I mean, here's the thing. Here's the other thing about Breece Hall, and I have to be honest with you here. I go back and I have to be even it out because I did just rip James Cook for the 16 touchdowns. Breece Hall only has 14 career touchdowns.
Career
outside of receiving. He's actually had he's had some good receiving touchdowns. He for his career is 14 rushing touchdowns and 8 receiving touchdowns in his career. 22 career touchdowns. So that's the toughie with Breece Hall. Toward the ACL rookie year. Last 2 years was solid, but again, I have no problem if someone says, "Hey man, like Breece Hall's being overrated." I think he probably is. I mean, he doesn't even have a 1,000 yard rushing career in his career. Doesn't
Kamara
have
doesn't
one.
either, but he's still highly up there.
Yeah, and you know, and he's receptions wise is why I think Brees Hall's bumped up. 76 catches for 600 yards. His second year with 4 receiving touchdowns, 57 for 483 and 3 touchdowns last year. So really, it's the receiving profile that's pushing up Brees Hall because doesn't even have 1,000 yards in a career. Again, I think James Cook and Brees Hall, like you said, are very, very close. I just slightly prefer Brees Hall because I think he's a better player. The stats don't necessarily bear that out in their career. I just think the Bills have been on a better offense, but I do like Brees Hall. You know, I still think it's a little crazy that he's being, you know, a lot of people still have him in the top 3 or 4 for Dynasty running backs. I think that's a little high, even though I like him. Right now on DLF, he's number 6.
Who, Brees?
Yes.
That's a lot too high.
Yeah, it just, I mean, I think the potential is there. I really do. But if you want to go out and look at it and say, hey, what has he really done in his career? I think it's very difficult. I mean, again, you've got people absolutely hating Najee Harris with 4 straight 1,000-yard seasons. And Brees Hall's never run for 1,000 yards. He's only 2 years younger, technically, than Najee. Yeah. And you're saying not at Brees Hall's number 6 and Najee's 32.
Yeah, I'd probably take it. Yeah,
it's crazy.
Probably take even a rookie. This might sound crazy. A rookie like Travion Henderson over Brees Hall. Like he's more because he's just. I think
they're extremely close. I mean, I think the upside of Henderson would be there right now on DLF. He's number 13, so he's 7 spots behind Brees Hall.
That's too much of a gap.
Yeah, it seems a lot. I just think there's a lot of guys right in this middle mark. For dynasty purposes, I think there's I think you have those top 2 or 3 guys, and then you have the guys that used to be up there are getting a little older, like Barkley and Taylor, and then I think you have a lot of these rookies, and then you get the James Cooks, and then you got the Brees Halls, and you got the Kyron Williams, and all those guys kind of in that mix. So it's real interesting. To kind of finish things out here, what do we owe? A riser? I need a riser, right? One more riser.
Yeah. I'm out of risers, so you can go ahead.
All right, I'll throw out one more riser. This one's a toughie because it's really hard to see where all these rookies are going to go and where some of these other guys are possibly going to fall off because of the rookies. Man, it's hard because a lot of these guys are kind of right where they should be. For me, a guy I'm trying to acquire. And I'm going to say this. I'm trying to acquire him. It's really going to be tough depending on your league on what you can get him for. But for me, Christian McCaffrey. Ooh. I mean, we're talking a guy that going into last season was considered either RB1 or RB2 or RB3 at the lowest in Dynasty. He now is dropped. He's dropped all the way to RB17 or 18, depending on what list you're looking at. That's a massive, massive drop for him. Now, obviously, we know the injury concerns are the biggest thing for him. But if he is healthy at all, we've seen what he can do. I mean, the guy's an absolute beast. For me, he's a riser on my list only because he's such a faller. He's fallen so far down that to me, he's a slight riser. In fact, not where he was last year, but if you're looking at the rankings right now, I'm moving him up a bit because everyone's so far down on him. If you can get him for a reasonable price, I'm in. I've been testing the waters in almost every one of my leagues on people trying to move off CMC and what I can get him for. There's still some people out there asking crazy prices for him, wanting 2 first rounders, some nuts stuff like that. A straight up CMC trade, I think, is going to be still slightly difficult because I think people are they spent so much to get him that's hard for people to say, hey, it's a sunk cost and just come off him. So I think it's going to be hard there. But man, if you're looking to make a 2 or 3 player trade, CMC is a decent guy to throw in that mix. He's still not old. Like people are like, and I also 29. Think, he's 29. But again, outside of the injuries, whenever he actually plays, he's been absolutely fantastic. We've never got an average CMC. At any time, even the seasons he was hurt, he absolutely crushed when he played. So for me, if I'm in a contender, I'm looking to win. I'm looking at possibly moving some players or picks for him because I just think he's worth a lottery shot if he's healthy this year. If he can do it, will he get the carries and the stats he had 2 years ago? Probably not. But even if he does 70% of what he did 2 years ago, that's an RB1 season out of him. So you might have to move a first for him. I would consider a late first, depending on my team and my league. If you could kind of package a player in a deal and maybe move a couple second, third round pick with him in a player, I'm taking a chance on him. Again, we're talking risers and fallers, but for me, he's such a huge faller that he now has turned into a slight riser for me.
Yeah, JT, sorry to say this, but I just can't touch CMC like in Dynasty, man. Unless the exception of your legit contender for your roster, I'm not touching CMC. I'm really scared based on the injury history, based on all the reports. I know the 49ers say, oh, he's good to go 100%. They say that all the time. They've said that multiple times over the last 2 years or so when he's been in San Francisco specifically. I just don't trust anything they say. If you guaranteed me a season of 100% out from CMC, he's absolutely worth it. But right now, I just, again, unless you're a legit top 2 or 3 team in your league, in your eyes, I would be really scared to move significant capital for CMC personally. There's a lot of trepidation there, if you will, from my end.
I 100% agree with you. That's where I'm at because I think there's a ton of people who are exactly in your camp on this. They've been burnt by CMC too many times. They don't want to take the chance. They don't want to spend any kind of future draft capital to get him if he just bombs out. If he because again, if he ends up being hurt this entire season, we might be done with CMC, right? I mean,
we might already be.
It could be over. And you're right. It could already be over. That is the toughy part about this.
Yeah.
And I think maybe I'm a little blinded slightly just because CMC is one of my all-time favorite players. So I know what he can do. So I'm out there looking at it, but it's definitely high risk, high reward. It really is. I mean, you could end up burying your team with a CMC move this year.
3 years. Yeah.
For 3 years, or he could end up, leading you to a championship. So I think it's one of those things you just have to look at the risk reward for you and say, how much are you willing to risk? Like you said, you're out on him. And I absolutely understand that. And I think there's a lot of people like you that just said, I'm over it. I have a cousin that we were in a league together, a dynasty league, but he's been he's like, if we wouldn't have CMC right now, he was out on CMC 2 years ago when I talked him into trading.
2 years ago.
He was out on him then. He's like, he just buries my team. Every time I have him, my team falls apart and I'm terrible. I just don't want the, the heartbreak anymore. And I understand that completely. So it is a tough call. and I think that the only way
definitely
it works,
high variance.
I think the only way it works is you find someone in your league like you and me, where someone like me maybe believes them and someone like you doesn't. And see if you can come out with
got to be a contender.
People think it's a fair trade to make the move.
Yeah, I like all those calls.
All right, Aiden. As we finish up the show here, we want to thank everyone who joined us here tonight on Fantasy and Frames Dynasty 365. We got the Shoot the Gap coming up next. Me and Jorge will be talking risers and fallers linebackers for IDP. Don't want to miss that show. Aiden, give us a heads up on everything you've been doing. All the stuff's out there. I know you've been posting a ton lately. You've been working on articles. Tell people what to go look for.
Yeah, literally just yesterday over the last couple of days, I cranked out the first 4 running backs drafted. I talked about the first 4 running backs drafted. I looked at their redraft outlook for 2025 and then their dynasty outlook for beyond. And then I will be doing that with 4 more running backs with part 2 with a second article coming late this week / early next week. So be on the lookout for that and continue to write articles. And then obviously update my rankings with the 4th and Frames crew later, which I cannot wait for.
Real quick, a question before we get out of here. Let's talk about this one real quick from JTube. Thanks for jumping in and asking us here. He says, hey, guys, just did my first Dynasty League Premium Superflex. My team is QB is Nix Williams, running back, Cardinals, Commanders, top two RBs, wide receiver, Puka, Rome, Worthy, Shakur, Jennings, Palmer, Trey Harris, tight end, both Raiders. I think is what he meant. So I think he's got Bowers and Myers there. He says any position or player I should be targeting. I'm guessing he's got James Conner and he's got Brian Robinson there at running back. Pretty solid wide receiver
upgrade the running back a little
crew
bit
here. I would, J2. That's what I would do if I'm looking at any position, or he says a position or a player should target. I'd be looking at running backs. I'm looking to see if anybody has some guys out there they drafted don't necessarily love them. They maybe want to move. I'd also possibly look at a second tight end, depending on how big the tight end premium is. If you're closer to like a 1.75 or 2.0 PPR for tight ends, I'd maybe look at to add a second guy. Bowers obviously is the bomb. He's the guy you want in tight end premium leagues. But if you can get a second guy that you could play certain weeks with a high volume, I think that's always nice. It's just in case of injuries. But again, sometimes in those higher tight end premium leagues, you want to be starting 2 tight ends per week, especially if you don't have a super strong wide receiver core. So that's kind of where I would be going. He says Josh Jacobs on trade block. Should I trade for him? If you can make a reasonable trade offer, I like Josh Jacobs.
He's undervalued right now, in my opinion.
Josh Jacobs is a little undervalued. People are down a little bit on the Packers offense. I think Josh Jacobs would be a great guy to go after, and the premium's 0.5, so it's a 1.5 tight end premium. Maybe don't have to go for a high end guy, but maybe see if you can get a guy
throw in like
a Cade Otton or someone like that. That's kind of a guy that's going to be in that 10 to 15
middle
tight end range. He's a middle tier guy. You're probably not have to spend a ton to get him. Maybe go look at something like that, picking up a guy like that. Man. Yeah, Dallas Goedert is a good one right now. He's a little bit cheaper as people are kind of down on him, but he's still in a good offense. And when he plays, he's pretty good. I love having Goddard and Dalton Kincaid, another
bounce
good one.
Back,
people are a little bit down on him. I've seen a lot of people saying they're moving on from him, trying to go a different direction. So Dalton Kincaid is a nice spot too. I think he could have a nice little bounce back. People are worried about the knee injury and a few things with him. If you believe, like Ian does believe, I think that's a nice spot to get another young guy in case somebody else is worried about him. So, hey, J2, thanks for jumping in with those questions. We appreciate it. Wish we could answer more, but we've got to move on. Is Wednesdays here on Fantasy and Frames. We've got shows coming up all night long. So next is Shoot the Gap, and then Fourth in Frames after that one. So make sure to stick with us on that. I think they're doing running back redraft rankings on that one as well.
13 through 24. We're
13
going over.
through
And then
24.
next week is 1 through 12.
Perfect. So stick around for those shows, excuse me. Again, like, subscribe, give us a comment, please. Social like the show, say thanks, guys. Whatever you can do
helps a lot.
Always helps us, especially with the algorithm and everything else. But that is going to do it for us here on Dynasty 365. For Aiden, I'm JT. We'll check you guys next time.